Bryant Chase. I'm Career Arc's Director of Social Media and the host of our new series, Help Wanted. We're here to share insights that should help members of the recruiting industry. In this series, I'm going to introduce you to some really special helpers. We're going to chat about how their personal lives impact their professional lives and how all that circles back to ultimately benefit the recruiting, talent acquisition, and employer brand specialists of the world. Marissa Gonzalez is our behind the scenes queen. She's our social media manager and currently managing our screen switching, my time, and the comments section. So speaking of, please let us know in the comments where you'll be watching from. We love looking back on that later. Last week's episode dealt with elevating your performance, not only as a talent acquisition professional, but in any part of your life. Senior product manager Adam Lowe shared how his experiences with great leadership set him up for amazing success, and then how he refocuses that success into his work at the company that benefits our product and all the recruiters that are part of our team. So one more thing, our guest today is Artin Boghosian, who is the Vice President of Engineering. It's an impressive role for somebody who admittedly slacked off in school. And we want you guys to listen into this and or watch. And I say listen in because this is something that you could even just have on in the background while you work, and you can just absorb all the things that we are discussing. So today, Artin is going to share with us a really intense topic, and you know, he took ownership over his academic interests from a young age, and that eventually led to him taking ownership over his voice in the workplace. Now, I think that's something that oftentimes people are dealing with, not knowing how to find their voice in the workplace. Artin found it, put it into action, and has had incredible success because of that. And I know that's something that can benefit recruiters. So it's not always easy to do these things, but it is worth it. And I know that this is going to resonate with a lot of you in the recruiting industry. So without further ado, Artin, I'm really happy to have you joining us today. Welcome to the show. Take a moment to tell everyone where you're joining from and how you got started in your career.
Thanks a lot, Brian. It's a pleasure to be with you here. So I'm streaming from Glendale, California, the home of the Armenians. I got started with software engineering in basically in middle school. We got our first computer, got the internet, and I was just amazed. How does eBay work? Like, what is this? So I kind of stopped doing my homework and reading assignments, and instead bought books from Amazon when Amazon was still a bookstore. About web development. I would just read those instead.
I love that's so cool, and it's funny because I know a few people who have who did things like that I was friends with growing up, and it always blew my mind because that's not how I work. But it's so cool to see how, like, to think that you were doing that at such a young age and see where you are now. Like, you put that into action too.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I did basically. And people were like, "Oh, look how lazy Artin is. He's doing bad in school. He's not doing his homework. Performance could be better and all the report cards." But on the side,
you just knew, you knew what you needed to know, and you dove in with that. So I think that's awesome. And it's funny though, because to have such a genuine interest in what you're doing, such an authentic, deep down interest in what you're doing. You talk about how you didn't always really know how to speak your mind at work, and you have a phenomenal voice at our company. And we're super lucky to have it, but it wasn't always that way. And when I heard that from you, it kind of shocked me. So I was kind of curious, can you tell me, how you were before versus how you are now a little bit?
Yeah. So before, I kind of would take comfort or put myself in the background. I'm someone who is going to be in the background. I will be a support to people. Let the other people make decisions, let them hash it out, let them figure it out. And my role is to be in the background and help them support and implement that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love helping people out. If you're like, "Hey, I got this gig, I need someone to come set up," I'll be there 100% and do it with joy. I love supporting and helping people. But
sure,
that was kind of my mindset, where I don't speak up. You stay in the background, let other people make decisions, and you'll just be a support. And that's how I operated before. And that was just my way of participating or my lack of participation in a certain way.
Well, the reason that I invited, for those watching, and Artin, for you, I know we've talked about this, but the reason that I invited you on was because we met at the Career Arc Summit. All of our team met in Huntington Beach, had this great work summit, and Artin was leading a breakout group. And you just did such a good job of making sure it's funny that you take that kind of quiet mindset that you had before and like stand in the background. But then when you were in this leadership role, moderating this group, you were making sure that everybody was heard too. And I think that that probably comes from, I remember I used to do that, but I'm not going to let you get by. You have to get in here too and kind of participate and help out. And I love that. And, it's interesting. I relate to what you're saying too. Sometimes I think of what I'm doing as being empathetic to others, like I'm being considerate. Others need to have their voice. There's a sense of fear of failure that's associated with it. And you mentioned too, just not wanting to like rock the boat. And I thought it was really fascinating that you kind of figured out why you were like that. And you're going to share that with us. And this is just for everybody listening. This can be a little bit heavier than a normal talk about just recruiting stuff. So I want to forewarn you with that in a really good way, though. I think this is a powerful story.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of going into the background and saying, hey, I'm just going to be in the background, you mentioned things like fear of failure, lack of confidence in myself, not wanting to rock the boat, and all these things that kind of I used to justify in my head why I should be in the background. Mm-hmm. It all started. So I grew up in a family where my father was an alcoholic, and he was a violent alcoholic towards my mom and my sister, actually. So we didn't actually live with our parents. Me and my sister lived with our grandparents because at any moment, you don't know. There's no like, oh, A happened and B happened and Dad went crazy. It's just like random. So growing up in an environment like that, for me, it kind of made me go like, hey, you better be careful what you say, what you do, how you behave, how you act, because it could lead to just devastation and catastrophe. So I kind of tied that back to growing up in that environment, why I had that lack of confidence, why I was afraid of failing, why I was afraid of rocking the boat, and how I justified for myself that I should be quiet and be in the background rather than share my mind, speak up. And the way that I made that connection for me personally was that, I actually started going to therapy and discussing with a therapist and kind of like going down that journey and discovering and making those connections of, okay, this makes sense. And now I had a reason why. I don't think you need that reason. I don't think you need to figure out why exactly, you're not speaking up or you're not taking up space and you're choosing to be in the background. I don't think you need to figure that out in order to progress and make steps ahead, but it's useful to kind of go like, I'm not crazy. There's a reason for this.
Yeah, it's super useful. And I appreciate you being so transparent and sharing something like that with, the world in the public setting like this. And B, I think it's really outstanding that you are such a good example of how to transition from that. And one of the things that you talked about is in the process of learning to speak up is the importance of safe spaces, or the importance of spaces that you have to know that there's not going to be a negative reaction from you doing these things, but you can't just go into a meeting for the first time and just be like, cool, okay, and now everything's fine. It's helpful to have practice in safe spaces first. And so you have some good examples that you walk through that helped you kind of lean into that. Tell me about that a bit.
So I found that for me personally, and people like me, because I recognize and I see people who are in the same boat as me. I kind of recognize and I see that. And I found that one of the fundamental things that holds them back, people like me back, is this fear of taking up space. Like, I'm here, I'm a person, I matter, my thoughts matter, I'm just as important as other people. Nobody's more important than me, and I'm not more important than other people, but you kind of have this fear of taking up space and being present. And so you got to start somewhere, and for me, and for people like me, I think you got to start first. You have to make a decision for yourself that I'm going to embrace being uncomfortable. I'm going to embrace discomfort, and I'm going to intentionally put myself in uncomfortable situations. Now, let me clarify what I mean there. So because you have a fear of taking up space, or you're scared to take up space, I think it's crucial to think about opportunities to, in small increments, take up space and flex that muscle, because your muscle of empathy and support, that's like Arnold Schwarzenegger level, like just flexing, and it's huge. But your muscle of taking up space is scrawny, it's weak, it needs a lot of work. So we got to start somewhere. And for me, the place to start is things like this. This is what I mean when I say, put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Since you're afraid to take up space, since it's difficult for you to take up space, you can walk into an elevator where everybody's uncomfortable. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But, and you're going to stand in that elevator, chest out, head held high, and that's your space in the elevator. No one is going to, no one, you deserve to be there. So you're going to be uncomfortable. You might like look down and look away, but you're going to keep doing that. That's a place to practice, right?
Yeah.
Another place to practice is you're walking down the street. Someone's coming towards you. Let them move over for you. Not because you're a jerk, but because you're learning to take up space. Like, let them move over for you. You're going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be discomfort there, but you're going to embrace that and endure it and go through it. And these are just like small steps that you can take to start your journey on taking up space. It's not just going to be like, I wish I could tell you like, oh yeah, one day I was like this and the next day I was just taking up space all day long. No, I'm still working on taking up more space.
It's not a success or a failure thing. It's just like, progress, and just making sure you're moving towards a goal. Right. And, I think about how beneficial that could be. I've seen it happen in my own life, and I still work on those sorts of things myself. But the benefits that you see from something like this are pretty extraordinary. And after you started kind of implementing this strategy for yourself, you started to see changes take place that you may or may not have expected. So what kind of things did you see that benefited you throughout this process? So
number one, whether we like it or not, people who are more assertive are going to make more money, are going to have more opportunities, are going to get more promotions. That's just the way it is, Not
a bad thing.
And so if you are not taking up space, you're kind of going to be holding yourself back from opportunities to make more money, opportunities for advancement. So, that's one part of my life that kind of improved personally.
As if you need more examples, but there are more.
Yeah, that's important. Everybody wants to, make more, take care of the people around them, have more fulfillment in their career. Mm-hmm. The other part for me is I think that as you grow, because you have a unique place, and understand people who are like you, who kind of fall into this background and don't take up space. And because you've done it, you can notice those people and help them, whether it's your coworkers, whether you go into a management position, you're managing people. Now you can take that and say, hey, I recognize this in this person I'm managing, or hey, I recognize this in this coworker that I have. And you can now give back and help others have a voice. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not, truthfully, it's not, people aren't going and saying like, hey, why isn't this person speaking up? Let's try to get more from them, But you, because you went through that, you have that unique perspective, you have that unique connection that you can now go and say, I want to help others who don't have a voice, have a voice.
So tell everybody who's watching a little bit about what your role is as VP of Engineering and how you use that in your role now. Because I love that you say that you use that to kind of build the rest of your team up too. You recognize it on others, you share those skill sets. Because the other phrase that I used to absolutely hate this phrase, but I really love it now. It's called the rising tide floats all the boats. And so, if things are changing, if you're doing really, really well, some people might see it as competition, but it's not even necessarily competition. It's literally just kind of like, you want everybody to succeed. Our success is cumulative, it's mutual. And so tell us a little bit about what your role entails and then how you refocus what you do now in a leadership position with using your voice.
Absolutely. So my role is kind of like a dual role. I still, actively participate in programming and shipping out features and writing code, but also I manage the development team on the day-to-day. And so one way that it comes out of my management is, I recognize team members who need to build that voice, and then I challenge them and I encourage them and I push them to do that. I don't just let it fly by. It's like, oh, this person's just going to be quiet and not say anything and just fall into the background. That's not going to happen with me. But I'm not going to be harsh about it. I'm not, I understand. So I'm going to come from that position of like, hey, I know I've been in the boat. I've been where you are. And I'm going to encourage you and I'm going to challenge you to step out of that. So, other people, I'm amazed by people who just speak their mind. It's always been difficult for me, and I'm in admiration of them. So there's people who just speak their mind and say what they got to say. They don't, have this like, I'm gonna rock the boat, I'm gonna go in the background. And I love those people and I appreciate them. I'm amazed by them. Maybe for them, they need to work on, okay, how can I, tone that down a little bit in certain circumstances. But for people who are, like me, it's like, no, you need to work on being like that, speaking your mind, sharing things and participating, because you can bring a lot of change to your company. Like when I came here, I came back to our company and, with a different mindset, I started working on these kinds of things. And, I introduced to our team, code reviews and automated testing, which we didn't have for 10 years. And I brought that in. I slowly implemented it with the team, worked with the team to bring that. And we wouldn't have had that if I didn't share my voice. And now we have, code coverage and test coverage. If something breaks, we introduce a bug, we know about it. So we wouldn't have had that if I didn't speak up. So your company is potentially missing out on a lot that you can contribute because you're choosing to be in the background. So it's like, there's a lot more that people can contribute and bring in and bring changes positively to the work environment, to processes. And the truth is that you're at work for 8 hours, and this is how it's manifesting at work. But it's not just in work; it's in your life too. It manifests in different things in your personal life. So there's this interplay where if I can tackle this at work, it's going to affect my personal life, and I'm going to improve there. If I can tackle things in my personal life, it's going to improve my work life as well.
Yeah. So we're running a little low on time, but I do want to get one more thing out. What would you say to anyone who wants their own voice at work or in life to be heard, and specifically recruiters? I know recruiters are dealing with such a stressful work environment right now, and it feels scary to kind of speak up in the workplace a lot. What would you say to them about the value of it, or how to just get started?
Yeah. So I would say, again, first of all, make the decision that I'm going to be okay in discomfort. I'm going to put myself in uncomfortable situations where I'm taking up space. That's the first decision you got to make. That's a choice that only you can make. Once you've done that, start putting yourself in situations like the elevator, like when you're walking down the street. Anytime when you're taking up space, maybe you're in a line at a grocery store and you're in self-checkout and you're feeling uncomfortable because there's a line behind you and you're like, oh, I got to hurry up and check out. No, take your time. Let the people wait. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
Those things as a starting point for you to start building that I'm taking up space, I matter, I'm here. And that'll slowly lead you towards doing more challenging things. Not that that's not challenging for you to start with, but even more.
Bigger.
Yes.
Well, Artin, thank you so much. I am just thrilled with the fact that you are sharing such heavy stuff with us today, and really important stuff. These are all things that I think everyone can find analogies to in their personal life about how they've realized that they've been kind of trained to quiet down and stick to the background. And you give some great tips on how to speak up and come to the foreground a little bit more. So our LinkedIn contact information is going to be in the comment section below. Marissa is going to share that with you all. Please reach out and contact us. We love hearing from you. We're thrilled to share next week's episode. But that being said, we actually had a very, very happy shift in the schedule for one of our team members. They're going to be having a baby a little bit earlier than expected, but it means we're working on a replacement. So we will announce our updated plans for next week's episode shortly on our socials. Be sure to follow us on our socials: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and this is also available for you on YouTube as well. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Artin, thank you again for joining us. Marissa, thank you for being queen of the scene in the background, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.